It's Soleil, and this is episode 47 of the Red Pill to Orange Pill Investor. And I'm going to start off with a quote. I went back and started rewatching Robert Breedlove's What is Money podcast, specifically the Michael Saylor series. I'll put links in the comments. And one quote caught my attention. And I quote, "Now we actually have an engineered property, and you have a scientific basis for property rights." That was on the What is Money podcast, episode 12 of the Saylor series at around 1525. And it really caught my attention because some libertarians and anarchists will argue against a stateless society, even though they supposedly believe in property rights, and their argument is that you need a state to guarantee property rights, because otherwise someone can come and take your property, and you might be able to defend yourself against a single person, but against a gang or a feudal system or whatever, you're going to be outnumbered. And then even at the state level, there's going to be more powerful countries. And their argument is that you need bigger and badder countries to protect you from, I guess the ones that would rob you and take your stuff. And Bitcoin is the first engineered property that defends itself. So if you self-custody your keys and you use, you have half the codes on one part of the planet and then half the codes on the other part of the planet, or you use multi-sig and you have an algorithm running that won't even let you do anything with the coins if you're kidnapped, or you can put fail-safes in it basically. And the argument was that even if someone robbed you at gunpoint, they couldn't kill you because then they wouldn't get anything. So they're incentivized to at least just negotiate for half of your wealth and spare your life. So it was just it to me it's a breakthrough, and it may be the last piece that individual citizens need to really just be secure in their property without needing the police, without needing a government, and that's always the way that people end up kind of basically folding, is because they'll trade their freedom for safety and security. But if you have Bitcoin and you don't worry about safety and security because no one can take your stuff, you basically, if they kill you, you take your stuff to the grave. So people are disincentivized towards violence. So that really stuck with me, and it's something that I'll be thinking about, because throughout human history, it seems like most of the violence has been about people who are stronger than others taking their stuff. And this may be the first time in human history where we can see what happens to a society when they are incentivized to cooperate and disincentivized towards theft and violence. So it's a future that I'm looking forward to, and I hope I live long enough to see major changes. But it is Friday, so let's take a look. I ended up being so upside down on my 660, it was like a 660 MicroStrategy covered call, that I had to sell most of my other stocks just to be able to roll it and have a little bit of buying power left over. What did it tell me? The error, oh, because I did have so many covered calls that were breached. My strike was breached, that it actually wouldn't let me. It wouldn't let me roll some of my covered calls, even the ones that weren't like crazy, until I covered and closed all of those covered calls. So I had to do a bunch of switcheroos. But just check the history. This doesn't want to open again. This is annoying as crap. Anyway, this one I rolled the covered call. Oh, there it is. Finally opened. So I rolled the 660 to the 750. That gives about 5% upside for next week. Oh, good Lord. Gives about, I think the price of MicroStrategy was about 710, 715 at that time. So that would have given about 5% upside call away value. And then got paid. Let's see, opened this one up for 27. Yeah, cost me $5,000 to buy it back. And yep, and sold next week's for 27. So I had to come out of pocket like $2,700 for that one, which is fine because the value of the account went up considerably. I just didn't have enough buying power to cover it, so I ended up having to. I was able to salvage my Mara, which I trade with my son every Friday. We both trade Mara together. But I ended up having to get rid of the Hut and the Riot to be able to afford even rolling that. I don't like having such a small amount of buying power using margin, but you can't complain when the value of your account's going up. So that's basically the plan. When stocks are down, you're buying the dip, and when the stocks are up, you're selling your assets. So selling covered calls basically forces you to do what you should be doing, which most people don't have either the balls or the will, the emotional will to do, which is not panic when the price drops, but actually buy more, buy the dip. And people don't know how to pick the top. If something goes from 100 to 200, is that the top, or is 300 the top? But selling covered calls automatically forces you to systematically sell with a certain amount of upside. So with MicroStrategy being at 700, dropped after hours quite a bit, but actually not quite a bit. Not too much. I guess it was during regular hours it dropped 3%. But so there's I've built it with 5% upside, but the price has dropped a little bit. So there's between between 5 and 10% upside now. And then same with Mara. The price was about 28, and so we went to the 31, I believe. Yep. So the 31 call got paid $1.33, and there's about 10% call away value built into this one in case Mara pumps again. And really, the worst case scenario with MicroStrategy is that if it shot way above my 750 strike to the point where I couldn't afford to roll it and keep these 100 shares, then I just sell them, and then I'd be forced to pick a new asset. So, my preference is to trade MicroStrategy when I can afford it. But if I had to sell these off and buy a bunch of Mara, Riot, and Hut, or even some Tesla, that would not be the end of the world. That's not going to hurt my feelings. I did roll the covered call that was part of the 2 option strategy and rolled it to next week. I think I had like the 197.50 and then rolled it to next week to the 207.50 and got paid $284 here for that one, and left about 3% call away value. And the leaps itself would pump if that happens. I've got the 150 call, which is fairly deep in the money, 0.82 delta. So this seems to be a well-built Foreman's covered call. This actually appreciated about $7.50, and of course, options is always times 100, so $750 on that one. So yeah, the only two assets I trade are Bitcoin and Tesla. And when I say Bitcoin assets, that could be any of the derivatives, mining stocks or MicroStrategy. It's probably the best Bitcoin stock asset, as far as I can tell. Probably better than the ETFs since it's leveraged. Well, it's going to be better during a bull market. Not financial advice, but that's the limit of my diversification. That's Tesla and Bitcoin. And some maximalists would even say that's still putting, that's being wishy-washy or whatever, and just not putting all your eggs in the Bitcoin basket. Some people say there's no second best, etc. But even though I think 99.99% of Bitcoin's existential threats have been eliminated at this point, and anything that could pretty much take down Bitcoin at this point is going to take down most of the world, to the point where you probably wouldn't even need Bitcoins. There's probably a few machines running somewhere in the world, keeping the ledger alive. Somebody's going to be mining in the southern tip of freaking South America someplace, and keep the motor running. But at that point, bullets might be more valuable than Bitcoin if something happens that's big enough to take Bitcoin out. So to that extent, Tesla seems poised that if there's anything that's not Bitcoin, a lot of people say there's no second best, but usually they're talking about cryptocurrencies, and I would agree with that. That any of the shit coins that you can think of are just, there's not even a second best. I don't care what the market cap is. I don't care about the flippening. But as far as companies go, it seems like Tesla's already won the race, and it's the sky's the limit, and it's just a matter of time until the market figures it out. So that's why I don't trade in anything else. The other one that's intriguing to me is some of the genomic stuff. Kathy Wood's got that ETF, I think, that's around genetic therapies and genomic. I don't know. That one's intriguing to me, but I don't know enough about it to really say. I like her analysis on it, but for my purposes, there's enough upside in Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, and Tesla that I don't need to spend time figuring the genomic thing out. Like, maybe it'll do something, maybe it won't. But at this point, if Bitcoin and Tesla go where I expect them to, the genomic thing doesn't matter. But if somebody else is knowledgeable in that subject and can make an informed decision, then maybe trading some of those things makes sense. All right, I'll put a link to Saylor, the Saylor series, in the notes, and I'm about halfway through that series again. I watched the whole thing a year or two ago, and it just reminds me that whenever I talk to someone and they say that they're invested in this shitcoin or that shitcoin, even Ethereum, as popular as it is, I get kind of shocked. I'm like, if you spent 100 hours listening to and learning about Bitcoin, I don't understand how anybody can be a true believer. Ethereum is a better tech or something than Bitcoin, or has a better future. I don't understand how anyone reaches that conclusion. And I'm reminded that not everybody thinks the same way, and not everybody has listened to and studied the same things. And so there's tons of different opinions out there, and I guess I should be happy, because if everybody thought the way that I did, then everybody would be buying Bitcoin and the price would already be $1 million, and I would have never been able to get in at current prices. So I should be grateful that there are people on both sides of the trade. If everybody was hodling, then it would probably be too expensive to even get in. So lucky for many of us that it's happening slowly instead of rocketing to the moon overnight. All right, I think that's a good place to leave it. Be good, y'all.